The blood on Marcus's hands wasn't his own. He stood in the convenience store's back office, staring at the crimson stains covering his palms, while outside, the rumble of armored vehicles grew louder. 24 hours ago, he'd been just another night shift cashier at Quickmart, helping customers and counting down minutes until dawn. Now 3 black SUVs and 2 military trucks surrounded the building, and the man he'd helped yesterday, the blind man with the walking stick, was stepping out of the lead vehicle wearing a general's uniform. "Sir, we need you to come with us," the voice behind him said. Marcus spun around to find a woman in tactical gear, her hand resting on her sidearm. "General Morrison wants to speak with you." Morrison. The blind man had introduced himself as Robert Morrison yesterday, fumbling with his wallet, apologizing for taking so long to find his credit card. Marcus had helped him count his change, guided him around a spilled display, even walked him to his car. The man had seemed so grateful, so harmless. Now that same man stood 30 feet away, his dark sunglasses reflecting the morning light, very much not blind, directing a team of soldiers who were setting up some kind of perimeter. "I don't understand," Marcus whispered, his voice cracking. He couldn't see, he had the stick, the glasses. "Move," the woman said, stepping closer. "Now." Marcus's mind raced back to the night before. It had been quiet. Just him and old Mrs. Chen, who came in every Tuesday for her lottery tickets. Then the blind man had arrived around 11 p.m., tapping his way through the aisles with that white cane. He'd knocked over a display of chips near the back of the store, and Marcus had rushed to help him. That's when it happened. While Marcus was on his hands and knees, picking up scattered bags of Doritos, the man had asked him to grab something from behind the counter. "My medication," he'd said. "I dropped my pills back there." Marcus had crawled behind the counter, reaching into the narrow space between the register and the wall. His fingers had found a small bottle, but also something else, a metal object, smooth and cold. He'd pulled it out without thinking, a USB drive. The blind man had snatched it quickly, stuffing it into his jacket. "Thank you," he'd said, his voice different somehow, steadier, more controlled. "You have no idea how important this is." Now, being marched toward the parking lot with his hands zip-tied behind his back, Marcus realized the man had been right. He'd had no idea. General Morrison removed his sunglasses, revealing sharp blue eyes that tracked Marcus's every movement. "Mr. Davis," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "we need to talk about what you saw last night." "I didn't see anything," Marcus said quickly. "I just helped you with retrieving classified intelligence that was stolen from a military facility 3 weeks ago," Morrison cut him off. "Intelligence that could compromise national security if it falls into the wrong hands." Marcus felt his knees go weak. "I don't know anything about the USB drive, Mr. Davis. Where is it?" "You took it last night, you—" Marcus stopped, his blood running cold as he realized what was happening. "You weren't blind. This was all planned." Morrison nodded slowly. "A 3-week operation to recover stolen data. We tracked it to this location, planted it behind your counter, and I came in to retrieve it during your shift. Simple recovery mission." "Then why are you here now? Why the army?" Morrison's expression darkened. "Because when I got back to base and tried to access the drive, we discovered it was empty. A decoy." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Someone switched it, Mr. Davis. Someone who knew exactly what they were looking for." Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. "I didn't switch anything. I just picked it up and gave it to you." "Then who else knew about it?" Morrison demanded. "Who else was in that store last night?" The image flashed through Marcus's mind. Mrs. Chen, counting her lottery tickets at the front counter while he'd been helping the blind man in the back. Sweet old Mrs. Chen, who'd been coming to the store every Tuesday for 2 years, who always asked about his college classes, who'd given him homemade cookies last Christmas. Mrs. Chen, who'd had a clear view of everything from where she stood. "Tell me," Morrison said, reading the recognition in Marcus's eyes. Who else was there? Before Marcus could answer, one of the soldiers approached, holding a radio. Sir, we've got a problem. The woman you asked us to monitor, she's gone. Apartment's empty. Looks like she cleared out in a hurry. Morrison cursed under his breath. How long? Landlord says she left around 3 a.m. Took everything. Marcus's world tilted. Mrs. Chen, the woman who'd smiled at him every week, who'd known his work schedule, who'd probably been watching the store for months, was gone. Morrison turned back to Marcus, and for the first time his expression held something that might have been sympathy. Son, I'm afraid you've been caught in the middle of something much bigger than a convenience store robbery. That woman has been playing a very long game, and you just became her unwitting accomplice. What was on that drive? Marcus asked, his voice barely audible. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, studying the young man in front of him. Finally, he spoke. Troop movements, base locations, names and addresses of undercover operatives and their families. He paused. The kind of information that gets people killed. The weight of it hit Marcus like a physical blow. Mrs. Chen, kind, harmless Mrs. Chen, was a spy, and now she had information that could destroy lives. What happens to me now? Marcus asked. Morrison looked at the blood still staining Marcus's hands, blood that had come from frantically searching through broken glass and debris in his apartment that morning, looking for any clue about what was happening to him. That depends, Morrison said, on whether you're willing to help us find her. The general gestured toward the military vehicles. Because, Mr. Davis, whether you realize it or not, you might be the only person who can help us stop her before she disappears forever. And trust me, if she gets away with this information, a lot of innocent people are going to die. Marcus looked around at the armed soldiers, the military convoy, the store where he'd worked for 2 years. Everything he thought he knew about. His quiet life had just been shattered, but as he met Morrison's steady gaze, he realized he didn't have a choice. What do you need me to do? The drive to the military facility took 47 minutes. Marcus counted every one of them, watching familiar streets disappear behind tinted windows, while his mind struggled to process what was happening. 3 hours ago he'd been worried about a history exam. Now he was sitting across from a general who was explaining how his Tuesday night job had accidentally made him part of an international espionage case. Chen Mei Lin, Morrison said, sliding a file across the small table between them. That's her real name. Age 54, born in Beijing, immigrated to the US 15 years ago. What we thought was a deep cover identity for a harmless immigrant widow. Marcus opened the file, and his stomach dropped. The woman staring back at him from the surveillance photos was Mrs. Chen, but not the Mrs. Chen he knew. This woman's eyes were sharp, calculating. In one photo, she was entering what looked like a government building. In another, she was sitting across from a man in an expensive suit, money visible on the table between them. She's been selling information for 12 years, Morrison continued. Small stuff at first, building layouts, security schedules. Then she got more ambitious. The lottery tickets, Marcus said suddenly, the pieces clicking together. She always bought them on Tuesday nights, always during my shift. She was mapping your routine, learning when the store was emptiest, when she'd have the best access. To the back areas, Morrison leaned forward. Marcus, this woman has been studying you for months. She knew your class schedule, your work patterns, probably even your financial situation. Marcus felt sick. My financial situation? College tuition debt, your mother's medical bills, your part-time job barely covering expenses. Morrison's voice was gentle but direct. She was profiling you as a potential asset, someone desperate. Enough to be recruited if the opportunity arose. But I would never, we know that. Your background check came back clean. You're exactly what you appear to be, a college kid working nights to pay for school. Morrison closed the file, which is what made you perfect for her purposes. She needed someone innocent, someone who would help a blind man without asking questions. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. His good nature had made him the ideal unwitting accomplice. "Where do you think she's gone?" he asked. Morrison was quiet for a moment, then stood and walked to a wall-mounted map of the city. Red pins marked various locations: the Quick Mart, Mrs. Chen's apartment, several other spots Marcus didn't recognize. "That's what we're trying to figure out. She's had this exit strategy planned for years. New identity papers, cash reserves, probably multiple safe houses." He turned back to Marcus. "But she made one mistake." "What?" "She cared about you." Marcus blinked. "What do you mean?" Morrison returned to his seat, pulling out another photo. This one showed Marcus walking Mrs. Chen to her car after her Tuesday visits. Something he'd done dozens of times without. Thinking about it, security footage from the store parking lot. Every week for 6 months, you walked her to her car. You carried her groceries when it was raining. Last month, you even helped her change a flat tire. Marcus remembered that night. Mrs. Chen had been flustered, worried about the cost of calling a tow truck. Marcus had stayed after his shift ended, helping her put on the spare tire and making sure she got home safely. "She's been doing this job for over a decade," Morrison continued. "Rule number 1 of deep cover: never form genuine attachments to your targets." "But the footage shows something interesting." He paused. "She started bringing you homemade food. That's not professional behavior. That's personal." "You think she actually cared about me?" "I think she started to see you as the grandson she never had. And I think that's going to be her downfall." Before Marcus could respond, a soldier entered the room and whispered something to Morrison. The general's expression darkened. "What is it?" Marcus asked. Morrison stood. "We just intercepted communications. She's not trying to leave the country, not yet. She's still in the city." "Why would she stay?" Morrison looked at Marcus with an expression that was part admiration, part concern. "Because, son, she's trying to protect you." 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself in the back of an unmarked van, wearing a wire and trying not to throw up from nerves. Morrison's team had tracked Mrs. Chen to a small apartment complex on the east side of town, a location she'd rented under another false identity months ago. "She's been monitoring police communications," Morrison explained through Marcus's earpiece. "She knows we brought you in for questioning, and according to our intel, she's been trying to find a way to get you out of this situation." "How?" "We're not sure yet. But she reached out to one of her old contacts an hour ago, someone who specializes in making problems disappear." The van stopped 3 blocks from the apartment complex. Marcus could see the building in the distance. Run-down place that looked like it housed people who didn't want to be found. "Remember," Morrison said, checking Marcus's wire one final time, "you're here because you're worried about her. You want to make sure she's okay. Play it natural. The concern in your voice should be real because, despite everything, you do care about her." Marcus nodded, though his hands were shaking. "What if she's not there?" "She's there. She's been waiting for you to come looking for her." As Marcus walked toward the apartment building, Morrison's voice crackled in his ear. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. This woman may care about you, but she's still a professional operative. If she thinks you're a threat to her escape, she won't hesitate to eliminate that threat. Keep your guard up." The building's lobby smelled like cigarettes and desperation. Marcus found apartment 3B and knocked softly. "Who is it?" came the familiar voice from inside. "Mrs. Chen. It's Marcus. From the store." The door opened and Marcus's heart broke a little. The woman standing before him looked nothing like the sharp operative from the surveillance photos. She looked like the Mrs. Chen he knew, tired, worried, older than her years. But her eyes were different now, sadder, more alert. "Oh, Marcus," she said, stepping aside to let him in. I was hoping you wouldn't come, but I knew you would. The apartment was sparse but clean. A single suitcase sat by the door, and Marcus could see multiple cell phones scattered across a small table. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice cracking despite his efforts to stay calm. Mrs. Chen Mei Lin, closed the door and engaged multiple locks. "Tell you what, that everything you knew about me was a lie, that you were in danger, that helping you would put me in danger." She turned to face him, and for the first time Marcus saw tears in her eyes. "Because you are a good boy, Marcus, the first genuinely good person I have met in 15 years, and I did not want to destroy that goodness. The military is looking for you. They think you're going to sell information that will get people killed." Chen Mei Lin was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked to the window and peered through the blinds. "They are already here, aren't they?" she said quietly. "You are wearing a wire." Marcus's heart stopped. "Mrs. Chen, it's okay," she said, turning back to him with a sad smile. "I expected this, but there is something you need to know before they come up here. Something that will change everything you think you understand about this situation." She walked to the suitcase and pulled out a laptop. "The information on that USB drive, it wasn't stolen from the military, Marcus. It was given to me by someone inside their own organization." Marcus felt the world shift beneath his feet. "What? Your General Morrison isn't trying to recover stolen intelligence. He's trying to cover up the fact that someone in his own command is selling secrets to foreign governments." She opened the laptop, showing him a screen full of financial records and encrypted messages. "I wasn't the spy, Marcus. I was the investigator." Through his earpiece, Morrison's voice was sharp. "She's lying, Marcus." "Don't listen to her." But Chen Mei Lin wasn't finished. "The real information is still hidden, and the person who's been selling your country's secrets, he's been watching this entire operation, making sure I don't live long enough to expose him." She looked directly at Marcus, her voice urgent. "The blood on your hands this morning, where did it come from?" Marcus's mind raced back to waking up in his apartment, finding his door ajar, the strange cuts on his hands from searching through broken glass. "I thought someone had broken in, but nothing was missing." "Someone was looking for something," Chen Mei Lin said. "Something they thought I might have given you." Morrison's voice crackled again. "Marcus, get out of there now. She's dangerous." But Marcus was staring at Chen Mei Lin, remembering something that had bothered him all morning. "The person who broke into my apartment, they knew where I kept my spare key. They knew exactly how to get in without triggering the building's security system." Chen Mei Lin nodded grimly. "Someone who had been watching you for much longer than I have." Through the window, Marcus could see movement in the building across the street, snipers taking position. "Mrs. Chen," he whispered, "I think we're both in trouble." That's when the lights went out, and the shooting started. The first gunshot shattered the apartment window, sending glass cascading across the floor like deadly rain. Marcus hit the ground instinctively, his heart hammering as Chen Mei Lin grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the back of the apartment. "Stay low," she hissed, her entire demeanor transforming from worried grandmother to trained operative in seconds. "They are not here to arrest us." More shots rang out, systematic and precise. Someone was shooting out the building's exterior lights, plunging the entire complex into darkness. In Marcus's earpiece, Morrison's voice was shouting orders, but the words were fragmented, urgent. "Do not our team. Repeat, not our under attack, Marcus. If you can hear." The earpiece went silent with a sharp burst of static. Chen Mei Lin had moved to a backpack hidden behind the couch, pulling out equipment Marcus had never seen before. Night vision goggles, a compact pistol, something that looked like a small radio. "Who's shooting?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The people who have been hunting me for 6 months, she replied, checking the pistol's magazine. "The same people who killed my handler in Hong Kong, the same people who will..." Kill both of us if we do not move now. She handed Marcus a small device. GPS tracker. If we get separated, use this to find extraction point Charlie. It's programmed in. Extraction point? Mrs. Chen, what the hell is going on? She grabbed his shoulders, her grip surprisingly strong. My name is not Chen Mei Lin. I am Agent Sarah Kim, and I work for an international task force investigating arms dealing within NATO military structures. Her accent was different now, still Asian but harder, more clipped. For the past 2 years, I have been tracking a network that has been selling weapons and intelligence to hostile governments. Marcus felt like he was drowning. The lottery tickets, the sweet old lady act, was my cover, yes. But Marcus, her voice softened for just a moment. The kindness you showed me, the way you helped me every week, that was real. You became the one genuine thing in a life full of lies. An explosion rocked the building, and Marcus could hear boots thundering. Up the stairwell, the USB drive from last night, Sarah continued, pulling him toward a window that faced the building's fire escape, contained financial records proving that weapons meant for Ukrainian defense have been diverted to black market dealers. Weapons that have ended up in the hands of terrorists. And Morrison? Sarah's expression darkened. General Morrison is the one selling the weapons. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. But he's the one who brought me in, who told me you were the spy, because he needed to know what I had discovered and whether I had shared any evidence with you. Sarah was working on the window lock, her fingers moving with practiced efficiency. When his retrieval operation failed last night, he realized I had anticipated his move. The real evidence isn't on any USB drive. It's in a safety deposit box, and the only person who knows the location is me. Then why haven't you? Because the conspiracy goes deeper than just Morrison. He has allies, people in positions of power who have been covering for him. Until I can identify all of them, going public with the evidence would just get me killed and allow the operation to continue under new management. The fire escape window opened with a rusty screech. Sarah climbed out first, then helped Marcus follow. 3 stories below, he could see muzzle flashes in the darkness, a firefight between Morrison's legitimate military team and whoever was really hunting them. Morrison brought you in to interrogate you, Sarah explained as they started down the fire escape. But he also needed to keep you close, to make sure you hadn't become a liability. The blood on your hands this morning. Someone searched your apartment looking for evidence I might have hidden there. Morrison's people? No, Morrison's enemies. There are multiple parties hunting both of us now, some who want to silence us, others who want to use us. She paused at the second-floor landing. The task force I work for lost contact with me 3 weeks ago. They probably think I'm dead. A door burst open below them, and armed figures in tactical gear spilled into the alley. These weren't Morrisons. Soldiers. Their equipment was different, unmarked. Sarah pulled Marcus back against the building's brick wall. Mercenaries, she whispered. Probably hired by Morrison's buyers to clean up this mess. How do we get out of here? Instead of answering, Sarah pulled out her compact radio and spoke into it in rapid Mandarin. Marcus caught enough to understand she was calling for backup. But from whom? A voice crackled back, also in Mandarin, and Sarah's expression shifted to something between relief and concern. What did they say? Marcus asked. Help is coming, but there is something you need to know first. She turned to face him directly. Marcus, your involvement in this wasn't accidental. Morrison has been watching you for months, long before I ever entered that store. Marcus felt cold dread pooling in his stomach. What do you mean? Your mother's medical treatments, the experimental therapy that's been keeping her cancer in remission. It's been paid for by a shell corporation linked to Morrison's network. The world seemed to tilt. That's impossible. The insurance is legitimate, but there have been additional payments, anonymous donations covering costs that should have bankrupted your family. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. Morrison has been setting up leverage over you for almost a year. If this operation had gone differently, if you had discovered something that made you useful to him, he would have revealed his generosity and used your mother's life as collateral for your cooperation. Marcus leaned against the brick wall, struggling to breathe. Everything, his mother's recovery, his ability to stay in school, the part-time job that just happened to put him in the right place at the right time, it had all been orchestrated. But, why me? Because you work nights at a convenience store near a military facility. Because you're smart enough to notice details, but naive enough not to ask too many questions. Because you're genuinely kind, which makes people trust you. Sarah checked her watch. And because Morrison needed someone clean, someone with no criminal record, no political affiliations, no reason for anyone to suspect them of being involved in espionage. A helicopter approached in the distance, its searchlight sweeping across the building complex. "Is that your backup?" Marcus asked. Sarah listened to her radio again, then shook her head grimly. "No, that's Morrison." The helicopter's spotlight found them on the fire escape, pinning them in harsh white light. A loudspeaker crackled to life. "This is General Morrison. Agent Kim, you are under arrest for espionage and treason. Mr. Davis, step away from the suspect and you will not be harmed." Sarah looked at Marcus, and for a moment he saw not the trained operative, but the lonely woman who had genuinely cared about a college kid who helped her with her groceries. "Marcus, you have a choice to make," she said. "You can trust Morrison, surrender to him, and hope that he keeps his word about not harming you. Your mother will continue to receive her treatments, and you can go back to your life. Or you can trust me and help me expose a conspiracy that has already gotten dozens of people killed, and will kill many more if it continues." The helicopter was descending, and Marcus could see soldiers rappelling down ropes toward their position. "If I help you," Marcus asked, "what happens to my mother?" Sarah's expression was pained. "I don't know. But Marcus, if we don't stop this, if Morrison and his network continue operating, your mother's treatments will be the least of your worries. The weapons they're selling are ending up in the hands of people who want to destroy everything you care about." Marcus looked up at the approaching soldiers, then down at the mercenaries in the alley, then at Sarah, a woman whose real name he'd learned 5 minutes ago, who was asking him to trust her with his life and his mother's future. In his pocket, his phone buzzed, a text message from an unknown number. "Your mother is safe. Trust Sarah, the hospital is secure." "A friend." Marcus showed Sarah the message. She read it and nodded. "My backup," she said. "They got to her first." "How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know any of this is real?" Sarah reached into her pocket and pulled out something that made Marcus's blood run cold, a photo of him and his mother taken just last week at the hospital. Across the bottom, someone had written in red ink, "Insurance policies expire." "Morrison sent this to my handler before he was killed," Sarah said. "That's how I knew you were in danger." The soldiers were 20 feet above them now. Marcus had maybe 10 seconds to decide. He looked at Sarah Kim, or whatever her real name was, and realized that despite all the lies, despite the deception, despite everything that had turned his world upside down in the past 24 hours, she was the only person who had tried to protect him instead of use him. "What do we do?" he asked. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her since this nightmare began. "We jump. The fall from the fire escape should have killed them both." Instead, Marcus found himself crashing through a canvas tarp that's Sarah's backup. Team had positioned in the alley below, a safety net he hadn't seen in the darkness. They rolled hard onto concrete, but they were alive. Sarah was on her feet instantly, pulling Marcus toward a nondescript van that had appeared at the alley's mouth. Behind them, Morrison's soldiers were shouting, rappelling faster down their ropes. The mercenaries were converging from both ends of the alley. "Move!" Sarah shouted, pushing Marcus toward the van's open doors. As they dove inside, Marcus caught a glimpse of their rescuer, a woman about Sarah's age, Asian American, wearing civilian clothes but moving with military precision. "Agent Kim," the woman said as the van lurched into motion, "you've caused quite a stir in Washington." "Agent Park," Sarah replied, securing the van's rear doors. "I wasn't sure the task force still existed." "Barely. Morrison's reach goes higher than we thought. Half our operation has been compromised." Park navigated through narrow streets, while Marcus tried to process what was happening. "But we've been building a case from the outside. Your intelligence was the missing piece." "The safety deposit box?" Sarah asked. "Already secured. We moved the contents yesterday after we lost contact with you." Park glanced at Marcus in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Davis, your mother is safe. She's been moved to a secure facility, and her medical team has been briefed on the situation." Marcus felt a wave of relief mixed with continued terror. "How long has this been planned?" "Months," Park replied. "Sarah's been deep cover, but we've had surveillance on Morrison's network for over a year. When we realized he was targeting you as potential leverage, we had to move carefully to protect both you and your family." Sarah was checking her equipment, preparing for whatever came next. "How much of Morrison's network have you identified?" "Enough to bring down the whole operation, but we need Morrison alive. He's the only one who knows the full extent of the buyer network. Some of those weapons have ended up in very dangerous hands." The van turned into what looked like an abandoned warehouse district. Marcus could see other vehicles following, both protecting them and hunting them. "What about the USB drive from last night?" Marcus asked. "Was that part of the plan too?" Sarah looked embarrassed for the first time since he'd known her. "That was improvised. I knew Morrison was going to retrieve intelligence from the store, but I didn't know exactly when or what. When I saw the opportunity to observe his operation directly, I took it. By using me." "Yes." Her voice was quiet. "I'm sorry, Marcus. You were never supposed to be directly involved." Park pulled the van into a loading dock where several other agents were waiting. "We're secure here, but not for long. Morrison has resources we don't, and he's getting desperate." As they climbed out of the van, Marcus finally had a moment to process everything that had happened. 12 hours ago, he'd been a college student worried about exams and tuition payments. Now he was in the middle of an international arms-dealing conspiracy. His mother was in protective custody, and the kind old woman who bought lottery tickets every Tuesday had turned out to be an undercover agent. "What happens now?" he asked. Park and Sarah exchanged glances. "That depends on you," Park said. "We have enough evidence to arrest Morrison and several of his co-conspirators, but taking down the entire network will require a coordinated international effort. It could take years, during which time you and your family would need to maintain some level of protection," Sarah added. "Morrison has allies who won't just disappear when he's arrested." Marcus sat down on a crate, suddenly exhausted. "So my life as I knew it is over?" "Not over," Park corrected. "Changed. We can provide new identities, relocation assistance, continued medical care for your mother." "But yes, going back to your old life isn't really an option." Before Marcus could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the warehouse. One of Park's agents ran over, radio in hand. "Ma'am, we've got a problem. Morrison's not just coming after us, he's accelerating his timeline. Intelligence indicates he's planning to eliminate all evidence of the weapons sales, including the buyers." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked. Sarah's face had gone pale. "It means he's going to kill everyone who can connect him to the arms dealing, buyers, intermediaries, witnesses. Then he'll blame the entire operation on me, claiming I was a rogue agent." Park was already moving toward a computer terminal. How long do we have? 6 hours, maybe less. He's got teams moving on locations across 3 continents. Marcus stood up, something hardening inside him. There's another way. Everyone turned to look at him. Morrison still thinks I'm just a college kid who stumbled into this by accident. What if I wasn't? What if I contacted him, said I wanted to make a deal? Absolutely not, Sarah said immediately. It's too dangerous. But he's expecting me to be scared, confused, looking for a way out. What if I told him I wanted to trade information about Sarah for my mother's safety? Park was studying Marcus with new interest. What kind of information? I could tell him where Sarah is hiding the real evidence. But instead of giving him the actual location, I give him a location where you're waiting for him. A trap, Park said slowly. Using me as bait, Marcus added. He trusts me because I'm exactly what I appear to be. Someone in over their head, who just wants their family safe. Sarah was shaking her head. Marcus, if this goes wrong, if we don't try, Morrison gets away with everything. How many more weapons end up killing innocent people? How many more arms dealers think they can hide behind military uniforms? Park and Sarah looked at each other, having some kind of silent conversation. It could work, Park admitted reluctantly. Morrison's arrogant enough to believe he could turn you, and desperate enough to take the risk. But if he suspects it's a trap, Sarah warned, he'll kill you immediately. Marcus thought about his mother, about the kindness Sarah had shown him despite the deception, about all the people who would die if Morrison's network continued operating. Then I guess I better be convincing. 2 hours later, Marcus was sitting in a coffee shop downtown, waiting for Morrison to arrive. He was wearing a wire again, but this time it was connected to Park's team, not Morrison's. In his pocket was a fake USB drive containing fabricated intelligence about Sarah's location. When Morrison walked in, he looked every inch the concerned military officer, worried about a young civilian caught in a dangerous situation. Marcus, he said, sitting across from him, I'm so sorry about everything that's happened. Agent Kim is very dangerous, and I was afraid she might have manipulated you. She did manipulate me, Marcus replied, letting genuine emotion bleed into his voice. She made me think she cared about me, then she used me to steal classified information. Morrison leaned forward, his expression sympathetic. What did she tell you about the operation? She said you were the one selling weapons, that she was trying to stop you. Marcus forced himself to look confused and scared. But that doesn't make sense. You're trying to stop her, right? Of course, Agent Kim has been selling military secrets for years. We've been trying to build a case against her, but she's very clever. Morrison's voice was perfectly modulated, concerned but authoritative. Did she give you anything? Any evidence she claimed supported her story? Marcus hesitated, as if debating whether to trust Morrison. She said she had hidden something, some kind of proof, but she wouldn't tell me where. Marcus, I need you to understand something. Agent Kim is probably planning to leave the country soon. If she gets away, she'll disappear forever, and we'll never be able to stop her from selling more secrets. Secrets that could get American soldiers killed. I want to help, Marcus said, but I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore. Morrison reached across the table, his hand patting Marcus's shoulder in a fatherly gesture. I understand, but your mother, she needs those medical treatments to continue. I can make sure that happens, regardless of what insurance covers. I can also make sure you're protected from any retaliation from Kim's associates. There it was, the offer Marcus had been expecting. Help Morrison and his mother would be safe. What do you need me to do? Morrison smiled. Agent Kim trusts you. If you contacted her, told her you wanted to help her escape, she might tell you where she's hidden her evidence. Once we recover it, we can finally close this case. Marcus nodded slowly, as if the idea was just occurring to him. I could tell her I've found a way to get her out of the city safely. Exactly. And then I lead her to wherever she's hidden the evidence, and your people arrest her there." Morrison's smile widened. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for, son." What Morrison didn't know was that Park's team was already in position at the abandoned grain elevator where Marcus was going to send them, the location Sarah had supposedly revealed as her hiding spot. It was isolated, defensible, and far enough from populated areas that Park's people could end this without risking civilian casualties. Marcus pulled out his phone, pretending to retry T-continue edit. Marcus pulled out his phone, pretending to hesitate. "One more time. If I do this, you promise my mother will be okay no matter what happens?" "You have my word," Morrison said, his voice steady and reassuring. "Call her." Marcus dialed Sarah's number, his heart pounding as he waited for her to answer. When she picked up, he could hear tension in her voice. "Marcus, are you safe?" "I'm scared," Marcus said, letting his voice shake. "Morrison found me. He says you're the real traitor, that you've been lying to me about everything." "Marcus, listen to me." "I don't know what to believe anymore," Marcus interrupted, following the script he'd rehearsed with Park. "But I want to help you get away. I found somewhere safe, somewhere his people won't look for you." There was a pause. "Where?" "The old grain elevator on Industrial Road. It's been abandoned for years, but there's a way in through the back. If you can get there by midnight, I'll have a car waiting to take you out of the city." Another pause, longer this time. Marcus could almost hear Sarah thinking, wondering if this was real or another trap. "Marcus," she said finally, "if this is a setup..." "It's not," Marcus said, pouring genuine emotion into his voice. "You said you cared about me. You're the only person in this whole mess who tried to protect me instead of use me. Please, let me help you the way you helped me." "Okay," Sarah said quietly. "Midnight. But Marcus, if something goes wrong, if this is a trap, know that I never wanted you to get hurt." The line went dead. Morrison was watching Marcus carefully. "Very good," he said. "You might have a future in intelligence work." Marcus forced a weak smile. "I just want this to be over." "It will be. In a few hours, Agent Kim will be in custody, and you can go back to your normal life." Morrison stood. "Stay close to your phone. I may need you to help convince her that the escape route is legitimate." As Morrison left the coffee shop, Marcus felt a strange mixture of relief and terror. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the hard part. At 11:45 p.m., Marcus was crouched behind a shipping container 300 yards from the grain elevator, watching through night vision goggles as Park's team took their positions. Morrison's people had arrived first. At least 12 armed operatives surrounding the building, plus Morrison himself, in a command vehicle parked in the shadows. "Target acquired." Park's voice crackled through Marcus's earpiece. "Kim is approaching from the south." Marcus could see her, a lone figure moving carefully through the industrial complex, checking for surveillance, clearly aware this could be a trap, but willing to take the risk. "Morrison's people are in position too," Park continued. "As soon as Kim enters the building, both teams will converge." Marcus watched Sarah disappear through a gap in the grain elevator's fence. A few seconds later, Morrison's voice echoed across the complex through a loudspeaker. "Agent Kim, you are surrounded. Exit the building with your hands visible, and no one will be harmed." But instead of Sarah's voice responding, it was Park's team that moved first. Suddenly, Morrison's operatives found themselves caught in crossfire from federal agents positioned on the high ground around the complex. "This is Agent Park, FBI. You are all under arrest for conspiracy, arms trafficking, and treason." The gunfight was brief but intense. Morrison's people were well trained, but Park's team had better positioning and superior intelligence. Within minutes, it was over. Marcus watched as Morrison himself was dragged from his command vehicle in handcuffs, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. "How?" Morrison shouted as Park approached him. "The kid was working with me. He led her here." "Actually," Park said, Marcus has been working with us for the past 6 hours. Agent Kim never came to this location. What you captured was a decoy, one of our operatives wearing Kim's jacket and carrying her phone. Morrison's eyes found Marcus across the complex. Even at this distance, Marcus could see the fury and betrayal in the general's expression. "You have no idea what you've done," Morrison called out. "The people I was working with, the buyers, they don't just disappear when you arrest me. They'll come after everyone involved in this operation." "Let them try," Park replied. "We've been tracking your buyer network for months. By morning, law enforcement in 15 countries will be making arrests based on the evidence Agent Kim helped us gather." As Morrison was loaded into a transport vehicle, Sarah appeared beside Marcus. She'd been hiding in a different building entirely, coordinating with Park's team through encrypted communications. "It's over," she said simply. Marcus nodded, but he didn't feel the relief he'd expected. "Is it really? What Morrison said about the buyers will be handled. The task force has been planning this operation for 2 years. Morrison was just one piece of a much larger puzzle." Sarah looked at him with something that might have been pride. "You did well tonight, Marcus. You could have chosen safety, but you chose to do what was right." "My mother is safe. She's being moved back to her regular hospital tomorrow, and her treatment will continue without interruption. The government has arranged for a special fund to cover her medical expenses, legitimately this time with no strings attached." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. "And me? That's up to you. Park's team could use someone with your instincts and integrity. Or, if you prefer, we can arrange for you to finish college with a full scholarship and a clean slate." Marcus looked around at the industrial complex, at the agents processing evidence, at the remains of an operation that had stretched across continents and affected countless lives. "I think," he said slowly, "I'd like to finish my history degree first. But after that, maybe we can talk about how I can help make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again." Sarah smiled. The same genuine smile she'd given him on the fire escape, but warmer now, without the weight of deception behind it. "I think that can be arranged." 3 months later, Marcus was back to working Tuesday nights at the Quick Mart. But everything was different. The store had new security systems, and Marcus had new skills, courtesy of a weekend training program that Park's task force had arranged. His mother was in full remission, genuinely this time, and Marcus was back in school with a scholarship that would see him through to graduation. Mrs. Chen still came in every Tuesday night, but now her name was Agent Sarah Kim, and she bought coffee instead of lottery tickets. They'd talk about his classes, about her work, the parts she could discuss, about normal things that felt precious after everything they'd been through. "Any word on Morrison?" Marcus asked one Tuesday in late spring. "Life sentence, no possibility. Of parole. 14 other arrests across 12 countries. The weapons trafficking network has been completely dismantled." Sarah counted her change carefully. "It's over, Marcus. Really over this time." Marcus nodded, then asked the question that had been bothering him for months. "Do you ever regret it? The deception, the lies, putting me in danger." Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. "I regret that you were put in danger. I regret that your family was used as leverage. But the deception—" She shook her head. "No, because it led to justice being served, and it led to us becoming friends, real friends this time." She headed toward the door, then turned back. "Marcus, when you graduate, when you're ready, the task force could use someone who understands that sometimes the right thing to do is help a stranger with their groceries, even when you don't know who they really are." After she left, Marcus stood behind the counter of the same store where this had all begun, surrounded by the ordinary details of ordinary life. But he carried with him the knowledge that sometimes ordinary people get the chance to do extraordinary things. And sometimes the person who seems most helpless is actually the strongest person in the room. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Dinner Sunday, I'm making your favorite." Marcus smiled and typed back, "Wouldn't miss it." Outside, the city hummed with its usual nighttime energy. Millions of people living their lives, most of them unaware that a college kid working the night shift at a convenience store had helped stop an international arms trafficking conspiracy. That was fine with Marcus. Some stories were meant to be secret, but every Tuesday night, when Agent Sarah Kim came in for her coffee, they shared a look that said, "We did something that mattered. We saved lives. We made the world a little bit safer." And that was worth more than any story that could ever be told. The end.